Well,
all right, guys, here we go. This is going to be a good little project here. It is Friday, February, January 31st, right? 2020. And we need to replace this motor. Problems we were having was when it warmed up, it lost almost all oil pressure. And she lost oil pressure. And you could hear a knocking noise coming from it. I didn't think it was going to be a rod bearing because it didn't like get immediately like crazy fast. It was just there, and if you listened for it, you could hear it. So what we did already was because I actually sold this and sold it and said that if the motor was bad that we would replace it, and here it is bad, so we're replacing it. It's part of doing the right thing. Here, the motto of the Workman's Restorations. So what we did was we pulled the radiator. The kid who bought this from me pulled the radiator and put these brackets on backwards. You just got to be careful when you're closing the hood. So this way you know exactly where the bolts are. You know exactly where the bracket is when it comes time to reassemble. So he pulled the radiator and he pulled the shroud. This was a couple of months ago, actually, when we started this. It was still springtime. And I need to get a light set up, but I want to give you a basic idea of what's been done so far. The exhaust manifold bolts are taken out, and the spark plugs are pulled. I like to pull spark plugs, that way they don't get broke off. Unless you really don't care about them, then just break them off and leave them to cover the hole. So what we're going to go through doing here is I got my assistant with me today, and we're going to work on this without the radio, which really sucks. So we'll pull the fan. The exhaust is already done. We're going to have to pull the power hold that for a second. Let me get a light set up over here because we're going to need get a good extension cord. I'm going to try to not make this video drag out to be crazy stupid long. But at the same time, I want you guys to have enough information to know how to pull this motor. And this is the one that's going in it. We did some trading for this. I traded a 4-speed and transfer case for it. It's got nice chrome valve covers on it. We're going to probably tomorrow morning sometime take this down, pressure wash it off, but I wanted to get this started. It's hard to gain momentum on a project sometimes. But it's got a brand new alternator, brand new water pump installed recently. I'm not sure on this fan if it's a good fan or not, but we are going to take it off to make sure we don't damage it. But we're going to take it down. We're going to cover up all the holes in it. We're going to put it on a trailer, and we're going to bring it down to the pressure washer because I can't use it out here. It's like 5 degrees out. So we'll take it all down. We're going to pressure wash it real good, clean it up. Then we're going to take it back home and wire wheel it down a little bit, and we're going to repaint it black. Nothing real fancy. And then we might, wipe the valve covers off. But we got a new starter on this motor that we're going to use. We got a new alternator, which is good because this alternator, the bearings were going out on it. The problem with these Chevys this particular year is this big serpentine bracket on here. This big bracket, the bolts for it are right there. So you have to take the pulley off to get to it. I've seen guys cut holes in them, which is kind of crazy. But to get, let's see here. Maybe we can go with that bolt, looking at it now. And no, because the other bolt's probably back there. So we're going to have to pull this pulley off of here with a power steering pump puller. And then we're going to take those bolts off to drop the box, because when I was cutting the back, I bumped that line right there with the Sawzall because I had to cut that bracket off. It was the only way to get the old exhaust manifold off. All right, but she's kind of gunky, a little bit dirty. This motor's only going to be in there for about a year and a half, maybe, just something to keep the old girl going. It's a high school student that bought the Suburban here, so we're going to get this motor in. He plans on doing a 12-valve Cummins swap someday in it. It's 3/4 ton, 2-wheel drive. 3/4 ton would be real nice to put a Cummins in. So I'm going to give the camera back to my assistant, and I'm going to plug this light in, and we're going to I'm going to show you a little bit what's been taken off and what we have to take off. And then I think I'm going to kind of do a little bit, start the video again, show you what we did. You know, you don't need to be seeing me sweating and cussing and all that stuff here. So plus it's cold. Well, it is like 20 degrees out. 5 degrees was a bit of an exaggeration, but I want to get a good preview going on here. And this motor, you know, throttle body, but pretty much so many motors are the same in a Squarebody. That's one of the reasons why I like them so much, is the parts are so compatible. So okay, so the motor mount bolt's out already. That bolt down there is a, you could see it, it's already out, is a 5/8 on one side and an 11/16 on the other. We're going to go ahead and drop the starter down there, 2 5/8 bolts. We're probably going to go ahead and move these headers out of here. I had him start tearing this motor apart because I didn't have much time. So I just had him start working on it, pulling off what he could get. So you know what? I think we're going to work on pulling the headers now. So I'm going to go down and undo the collector gaskets right down here. I don't know how much we can see of them. 3 bolts down there, undo the collector gaskets. So we'll do those and pull the headers out. We recently replaced the exhaust when this belonged to my son. So them are pretty brand new headers. They're only about a year old. So we'll pull the headers out, and that'll get us a lot more room. I'll go with the headers and the starter. And then once the headers and starter out, I think the only thing left is the bell housing bolts. And get that power steering pump off. So that motor mount bolts out too. You can see that one a little better. That little round hole right down there with a little rust around it. You know, the ideal way to do this is to get the motor out and pressure wash the whole thing down, but I can't use my pressure washer around here till spring. And to get this big girl up on the trailer not running is not a fun situation. So could be done if it was like a high dollar, big, huge restoration, but the motor's going to be out, I say a year and a half, but it's probably going to be less than that. So in the comments, I'd like you guys to tell me what you would like to see better out of this. If I'm not explaining this good enough, if I'm zipping on through it too much. We're going to be doing a lot of motor jobs. We're going to be doing a lot of Squarebody work. I'm going to be replacing the water pump on my Blazer. My son just replaced that water pump, so we're going to have extra good one. So, and he replaced that power steering pump. So let me work on getting the exhaust off, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, time for a quick update. I got underneath in the collector bolts are rusted together down there. So what I did was I moved this strap over just to pull these up and out of the way. And usually that's what you'll end up doing, is trying to pull them out of the way, because you really take the least amount apart as possible. Because what we would do to get those off, you would have to cut them. And when you cut them, that means you have to put new gasket in, new this, new that, and everything. So, as said earlier, budget, $350 swap here. We do the least amount that we have to. So, well, and still doing it right. I mean, we're still trying to do this right. So, what I did was I took the fan off, and actually all 3 of the studs came out, and just that one was in there. So let's see what we got here. That's my office. All right, sorry about that. Had to take a quick call from a dispatch. I reload Monday, and I go all the way from Boston pretty much back down to Newburgh, New York, where I usually load. Then I'm going to Richmond, Virginia. Okay, so back on this. What we did was I took the vacuum booster line off. It plugs in here, and then it goes all the way around to the back of that bracket back there and takes a little 5/16 bolt, and then comes all the way back up to right there. I don't know why, like the old Chevys used to do, where you just took it from here to here. But this new fancy, smart people, look at this whole freaking bracket. Look at this thing. All this just to go from that hole to that hole. So, and that's where the little 5/16 bolt went in, which expertly catalog that somewhere. I'm sure it'll hit the ground somewhere if it's important. That's it. If it hits the ground, it's important, right? So we took that off. That's one thing you're going to need. And then what we did was we started peeling back the wiring harness. And what you do is it's so simple. This went to this one went to the alternator. And this came off the alternator also. This plug. So you just pull that prong back, slide this off, and this went to the temperature sensor down there. So you just unhook it and lay it back over to the side. Make sure you get it as far over to the side as you can and out of the way. What you want to do is try to get this down as basic and simple as you can. I'm gonna pull these headers up over here and strap them off over here. And what's that?
The relay for the fusion.
Okay. And you do the least amount that you have to. Not because we're lazy, but, well, call it what you want. So, one of the projects we're going to do is try to figure out how to get that off. I'm pretty sure we got to take that bolt out. And then there's a puller that goes around them knobs. And we'll pull that off. Once we pull that off, we can get to that bolt back there, get the power steering pump off, and then just set the power steering pump to the side. That's usually what we do on all Chevy pulls here in the Squarebody world, is you just take the power steering pump off, put it aside. Then you don't have to drain it and worry about it, nothing. Keep it as simple as possible. And then there's only a few systems you have to worry about when pulling these motors. You have to unhook the exhaust. You have to unhook the fuel system. You have to unhook all the wiring. Motor mount bolts, bell housing bolts, starter wires, alternator wires, coolant system. Well, I guess there is quite a bit that you got to worry about pulling. But basically, it's very simple. You don't have to be educated or have smarts or anything like that. It does help to be as good looking as I am when you're working on this stuff to get the job done. But so next thing I'm going to work on here is pulling all these wires, figuring out where they go. Now, if you guys have to, put a little piece of tape on them, right on them. But, you got to, also be aware that you get grease on them and stuff. I took that bolt off down there on the intake. Right there, that held this little ground wire. Make sure you reinstall all these ground wires, because you're going to have a problem later if you don't. And the ground cable is just right here. This ground cable. So you just tuck it off to the back, pull it off and tuck it. And then I took this bolt out of the AC compressor and pulled this to the side. Not sure what we'll do about hooking that back up. Yeah. Definitely secure that real good over there, like real good and tight like. So now we're going to work on pulling all these. I can't get that rubber boot out right there. I'm trying to figure out what to do about that. But then I'm going to just start unplugging all this stuff, all these little pieces, all these little things. Just remember where they go. And they do only plug in one way. So that is one thing you don't have to worry about doing them. So you can pull that little prong back, and usually that just about unplugs everything. So, and then you get it and you just unplug it as it goes, and then just stick it up over there somewhere out of the way, tuck it out of the way. Looks like we got this big bad coolant line on the back that goes to the intake back there. And then we'll probably pull this coolant hose just to make it easier. I'm going to take the serpentine belt off because I need to do that to get the power steering pump off. So I'm going to go ahead and work on some of that, and I'll be right back with you.